This is first class. Get out!
Take that bag off my seat, Mom. The words were quiet. Too quiet for the way the first-class cabin had gone still. Claire Harrington turned her head slowly, as if the voice itself had offended her. Her hand stayed on the leather strap of her designer purse, which she had placed across the empty seat beside her, like a barricade. She looked up at the man standing in the aisle, not at his face first, at his shoes, worn brown loafers, clean but old, then his shirt, dark blue cotton, buttoned neatly, wrinkled at the sleeves from a long drive, then the black duffel bag hanging from his shoulder. Cheap, she decided. Out of place, she decided. Beneath her, the cream leather seat hummed softly with the vibration of the aircraft preparing for departure. Around them, passengers lowered champagne glasses. A newspaper stopped mid-fold. Somewhere near the galley, ice shifted in a metal bucket. Nathaniel Mercer stood in the aisle with his boarding pass in one hand. He was 58 years old, tall, broad through the shoulders, with silver at his temples and a calmness that did not ask permission to exist. He had the kind of face that had weathered long rooms, hard decisions, and men who smiled while lying. But Claire saw none of that. She saw a man who did not look expensive, and that was enough. "I'm sorry," she said, though there was no apology in it. "This seat is taken." Nathaniel glanced at the small gold number above the row. "Seat 3B, he said. "That's mine." Claire gave a short laugh. It cut through the cabin like glass. "No, absolutely not." The man behind Nathaniel shifted uncomfortably. A woman across the aisle looked down at her phone, then up again, pretending not to listen. Nathaniel did not move. "Could you please move your bag?" Claire's smile vanished. "Do not tell me what to do." Her voice rose just enough to pull the rest of the cabin into the moment. The kind of voice people use when they want witnesses, but only the silent kind. "I paid a fortune for this seat," she said, "and I am not spending 6 hours trapped beside someone who makes me uncomfortable." The word landed hard. Uncomfortable. Nathaniel heard what she meant. So did everyone else. The flight attendant near the front, Maya Bennett, froze with a tray of pre-flight drinks in her hand. She was 32, sharp-eyed, tired in the way service workers learn to hide. Her smile stayed in place, but her fingers tightened around the tray. Nathaniel's face did not change, not anger, not shame, just stillness. "I paid for this seat too," he said. Claire looked him over again, slower this time. "Crueler. Did you?" A man in row 2 stopped typing on his laptop. Claire leaned back, one elbow resting against the window frame. Her diamond bracelet flashed under the cabin lights. "Because people like you usually wander into the wrong section and then expect everyone else to accommodate the mistake." Maya stepped forward. "Mom," she said gently. "Is there a problem?" Claire snapped her head toward her. "Yes, there is. This man is trying to sit beside me." Maya looked at Nathaniel. "Sir, may I see your boarding pass?" He handed it to her without a word. Claire crossed her arms, already satisfied, already certain the world would rearrange itself around her discomfort. Maya checked the pass, then checked it again. Her throat moved. "Mr. Mercer is correct," she said. "This is his assigned seat." The silenced Claire's eyes narrowed. "There has to be some mistake." "No, Mom," Maya said. "Seat 3B. Confirmed." Nathaniel reached for the empty seat. Claire slapped one manicured hand down on her purse. "No. One word. Cold. Final." Then she leaned forward, close enough for Nathaniel to smell champagne and expensive perfume. "You may have fooled the scanner," she whispered, though half the cabin heard it. "But you do not belong here." Nathaniel looked at her for a long moment. Behind his calm eyes, something old moved, not surprise, recognition. He had seen this look in hotel lobbies, boardrooms, country clubs, airport lounges. The same judgment wearing different clothes. The same belief that dignity had a dress code. He breathed in once, slowly. Then he said, "Move the bag." Claire's face hardened. And somewhere in that cabin, a phone camera began recording. Maya Bennett saw the phone first. It was half hidden behind a champagne glass in row 2, held low by a man in a navy suit who pretended to check his email. But the camera lens was pointed straight at Claire Harrington. Maya felt her stomach tighten. She had worked first class long enough to know when a bad moment was becoming evidence. "Miss Harrington," Maya said, keeping her voice calm, "I need you to remove your handbag from the seat." Claire did not look at her. Her eyes stayed on Nathaniel. Or what? The cabin seemed to shrink. The overhead lights glowed soft and warm, but the air had turned cold. Somewhere near the back, a seatbelt buckle clicked. Someone whispered, then stopped. Nathaniel stood with one hand resting lightly on the top of the seat in front of him. He could have said more. He could have ended the conversation with one sentence, one name, one title. He did not. There were moments when power was loud, and there were moments when it waited. Maya stepped closer. "Mom, this aircraft cannot depart until all passengers are properly seated." Claire laughed again, sharper this time. "Then move him." Maya blinked. "Excuse me? You heard me. Move him. Put him somewhere else." Nathaniel's jaw tightened just a little. The movement was small, almost invisible. But Maya saw it. She had seen that look before. Not rage, not fear. A man swallowing something he should never have had to swallow in the first place. "Mom," Maya said, "lower now. That is not how this works." Claire finally turned toward her. She looked at Maya's name tag, then at her face, then at the neat braids pulled into a bun at the back of her head. A slow, ugly understanding passed through Claire's eyes. "Oh," Claire said, "of course." Maya went still. Nathaniel's gaze shifted to Maya, then back to Claire. Claire leaned back in her seat, pleased with herself now, encouraged by the silence around her. "I see what this is," she said. "You people always protect each other." No one moved. The words were not shouted. That made them worse. They slipped into the cabin cleanly, like a knife through fabric. Maya's fingers curled around the boarding pass. Her training told her to stay professional. Her body told her to step back. Her heart told her that every quiet person in that cabin had just become part of the story. Nathaniel spoke, careful. One word. Soft. Controlled. Claire's head snapped toward him. "Do not threaten me." "I did not. You just did." "No," Nathaniel said. "I asked you to be careful with what you are showing everyone." For the first time, Claire looked around. She saw the faces. The older woman in row 1, lips pressed tight. The businessman with his phone angled too carefully. The college student near the aisle, frozen with earbuds in her lap. The retired couple across the aisle, staring at Claire like they were watching a person step off the edge of herself. Claire saw all of them, and chose pride anyway. She grabbed her handbag, but instead of moving it, she shoved it harder into the seat. "He is not sitting here." Maya inhaled slowly. "Ms. Harrington, I will have to notify the lead attendant." "Good. Notify whoever you want," Claire's voice rose. "Notify the pilot. Notify security. Notify the airline president for all I care. I am not spending this flight beside a man who looks like he came in from a Greyhound station." A gasp came from row 4, small, human, unplanned. Nathaniel looked down for half a second, not because he was ashamed, because he was tired. Tired in a way money could not fix. Tired in a way success could not protect. Tired of rooms where people needed proof of his worth before offering basic respect. When he looked up, his eyes were steady. "I have flown this airline for years," he said. "I have sat beside soldiers, nurses, grandparents, college kids, grieving husbands, tired mothers, and men who smelled like they had worked all night. Not one of them had to prove they belonged before sitting down." Claire's mouth tightened. That little speech might work somewhere else. It was not a speech. Then what was it? Nathaniel held her gaze, a reminder. The cabin went silent again. Maya felt the words land, not loud, not dramatic, just true. And truth in the right room could sound like thunder. Claire's cheeks flushed red. She stood suddenly, forcing Nathaniel to take half a step back in the narrow aisle. Her perfume hit the air hard. Her bracelet flashed. Her anger filled the space where decency should have been. "You listen to me," she said. "I am a senior executive at Meridian Global Holdings. I know how this world works. People pay for comfort. People pay to avoid unpleasant situations. And right now, you are the unpleasant situation." Nathaniel did not blink. A few rows back, a man in a gray suit slowly lifted his eyes from his phone. He knew that company name. So did the woman beside him. But Claire was too angry to notice. Maya's voice trembled just once. "Mom, please sit down." Claire ignored her. She moved closer to Nathaniel. You people think buying a ticket makes you equal. Nathaniel's face changed then. Not much, just enough. The calm remained. But something beneath it locked into place. Claire saw it and mistook it for fear. So she smiled. Then she raised her hand, slowly, deliberately. She extended her middle finger inches from Nathaniel's face. The whole cabin froze. No ice clinked. No paper rustled. No one breathed loudly. Claire held the gesture there like a verdict. This, she whispered, is what I think of you sitting next to me. Maya's eyes widened. The man in row 2 stopped pretending. His phone was fully raised now. Nathaniel looked at Claire's hand, then at her face. For a long moment, he said nothing. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet enough that people leaned in to hear it. You have no idea what you just did. Claire smiled wider. Oh, I know exactly what I did. Nathaniel nodded once. Slowly, he said, you do not. Maya moved first. She stepped between them so quickly that the tray in her hand tilted, and one glass of water trembled against the rim. It did not spill. Not quite. Mom, she said, and this time her voice had changed. It was still polite, still trained, but there was steel under it now. That behavior is unacceptable on this aircraft. Claire lowered her hand slowly, not with shame, with satisfaction. She looked past Maya at Nathaniel, then around the cabin at the faces turned toward her. The phones, the frozen eyes. The old woman in row 1 who looked as if she wanted to speak, but had spent too many years being taught not to make trouble. Claire smiled like she had won. There, she said. Now everyone knows where I stand. Nathaniel said nothing. He looked at Maya instead. For the first time, Maya saw something in his eyes that made her throat tighten. It was not weakness. It was not defeat. It was the terrible patience of a man who had learned that anger, from someone like him, would always be used as evidence against him. Maya understood that patience. She had worn it in airport terminals, at hotel desks, in staff meetings where her ideas became better once someone else repeated them. She swallowed. Sir, she said softly, I am so sorry. Nathaniel gave a small nod. You did not cause this. The words were quiet, but they hit her harder than she expected. Because service workers were used to apologizing for storms they did not create. Claire rolled her eyes. Oh, please. Can we stop pretending this is some civil rights documentary? I just do not want him next to me. The man in row 2, the one recording, lowered his phone slightly. Mom, he said. His voice was calm, middle-aged, careful, a voice used in offices and church meetings. Claire turned on him. What? He hesitated. His wife touched his sleeve, warning him without words. He looked at Nathaniel, then at Maya, then back at Claire. You should stop talking. The cabin held its breath. Claire stared at him as if a chair had spoken. Excuse me? You should stop, he said again. Before you make it worse. Claire laughed once. Hard. I did not ask for your opinion. No, the man said. But everybody here just got yours. That landed. Claire's face tightened. The first crack appeared. Not guilt. Not yet. Just the awareness that the room was no longer fully hers. Maya took that moment. Mr. Mercer, she said. We have an open premium seat in row 1. It is more private. I can reseat you there if you would allow it. Claire snapped. Perfect. Maya did not look at her. Nathaniel looked down at the seat that was rightfully his, the cream leather, the small pillow, the purse still sitting there like a flag planted on stolen ground. Then he looked at Maya. He knew what she was doing. She was not rewarding Claire. She was trying to protect the flight, the crew, and maybe him too. But there was a cost to that kind of peace. There always was. He had built a life learning the difference between surrender and strategy. This was strategy. He nodded once. All right. Claire sat back with a little victorious exhale. Maya reached for Nathaniel's duffel, but he lifted it himself. I have it, he said. He walked forward without hurry. Every step sounded louder than it should have. Soft soles on carpet. A duffel strap creaking. The low hum of the aircraft. The silence of people replaying what they had just allowed to happen. As Nathaniel passed row 2, the man who had spoken looked up. I'm sorry, he said. Nathaniel paused. The man's eyes were wet. Maybe from shame. Maybe from age. Maybe from realizing that silence was not neutral after all. Nathaniel gave him a tired, kind look. Next time, he said, say it sooner. The man looked down. Maya guided Nathaniel to row 1. She placed a fresh glass of water on the side table, with hands that were still slightly shaking. "I'll file a report," she whispered. Nathaniel settled into the seat by the window. "I know," Maya blinked. He said it gently, as if he already understood the machinery waiting for her after landing. The forms, the questions, the supervisor asking whether she had escalated properly, the quiet pressure to smooth the edges of something sharp. Nathaniel looked toward the window. Outside, the runway lights stretched into the gray morning like a line of small fires. "Maya," he said. She froze. She had not told him her first name, only her name tag had. "Yes, sir? Write down everything exactly as it happened. Do not soften it." Her lips parted. Before she could answer, the captain's voice came through the speakers. "Ladies and gentlemen, we apologize for the brief delay. We will be departing shortly." Claire, 3 rows behind, ordered champagne with a smug little wave. She believed the moment had passed. She believed the man had been moved. She believed power looked like her seat, her title, her money, her voice. Nathaniel folded his hands in his lap and watched the runway. He had not raised his voice. He had not shown his hand, not yet. The plane climbed through a thick layer of clouds, and for a few minutes, everyone pretended the world had returned to normal. That was the strange thing about public cruelty. After it happened, people adjusted their pillows. They opened laptops. They asked for coffee. They looked out the window as if silence could erase what their eyes had seen. But the cabin was not normal. Not anymore. Claire Harrington sat in seat 3A with her champagne balanced in one hand and her phone in the other. Her thumb moved quickly across the screen. She was not reading. Not really. She was checking whether anyone had posted the video. Nothing yet. Good. She took a sip and let the bubbles steady her nerves. Across the aisle, the man in row 2 still had his phone face down on his tray table. His wife whispered something to him. He shook his head once. His jaw was tight. In row 1, Nathaniel Mercer sat by the window, watching sunlight break across the tops of the clouds. He looked peaceful. That bothered Claire more than anger would have. Anger she understood. Anger gave her something to fight. But calm felt like a locked door, and behind that door she could not see what was waiting. Maya walked the aisle with practiced grace, offering drinks, collecting glasses, smiling when needed. But each time she passed Nathaniel's row, her eyes softened. Each time she passed Claire's row, her shoulders drew in half an inch. Claire noticed. Of course she noticed. People like Claire always noticed tiny shifts in obedience. She lifted her empty glass. "Miss?" Maya stopped. "Yes, Mom?" Another champagne. Maya gave a polite nod. "Of course." Claire tilted her head. "And maybe try not to spill it this time. You seemed a little emotional earlier." Maya's hand tightened around the tray handle. "Only for a second. I'll bring that right away." Claire smiled faintly. A small punishment. A reminder. Nathaniel heard it from row 1. He did not turn around. He only closed his eyes for a moment, as if placing the sentence carefully inside a larger file. 3 rows behind Claire, 2 men in suits leaned toward each other. They had boarded late. Both wore the tired look of executives who lived between airports and conference rooms. One was Daniel Price, 43, finance director at Meridian Global Holdings. The other, Ethan Lowell, was senior counsel from the New York office. They had missed the confrontation. They had no idea that the man in row 1 had just been humiliated by one of their own senior executives. Daniel lowered his voice. "Did you get the calendar invite?" Ethan nodded. "Emergency shareholder meeting, tomorrow morning." Claire's eyes moved, just slightly. The name of her company was not spoken yet, but she recognized Daniel's voice. Finance. Corporate. Useful, but not powerful enough for her to care about unless he had bad news. Daniel exhaled. Mercer called it himself. Claire's thumb stopped on her phone. Ethan rubbed his forehead. "That alone makes me nervous. Nathaniel Mercer does not call emergency meetings unless somebody is about to lose a chair." Claire's champagne glass paused halfway to her lips. Nathaniel Mercer. The name struck her first as information, then as pressure. Everyone at Meridian knew the name. Most had never met the man. Majority owner. Board kingmaker. 75% controlling interest through private holdings and family trusts. Old money did not scare Claire. Quiet money did. Quiet money did not need applause. It signed papers, Daniel continued. Softer now. I heard he has been reviewing personnel files personally. Ethan looked at him. Personnel? Complaints. Settlements. Promotion records. Terminations. 5 years back, maybe more. Claire's throat tightened. The champagne suddenly tasted sour. She turned slightly toward the window, pretending to adjust her bracelet. Daniel kept talking. Rebecca Shaw is involved too. Ethan sat back. That means ethics review. Worse, Daniel said. Independent ethics review. Claire felt a cold line run down her spine. Independent meant dangerous. Independent meant not Richard Calloway's people. Independent meant no friendly edits, no quiet phone calls, no files disappearing into legal archives. Ethan lowered his voice until it was almost swallowed by the engine hum. There were rumors about Claire Harrington. Daniel sighed. There have always been rumors about Claire. Claire's face went still, not because she was calm, because every muscle in her body had locked. Daniel looked toward the front of the cabin, and here is the strange part. Mercer is supposedly on this flight. Claire's fingers loosened around the glass. Ethan followed his gaze. Where? Row 1, I think. Window. The sound around Claire thinned. No engines, no glasses, no soft cabin announcements. Just blood in her ears. She looked forward, slowly. Nathaniel sat by the window, the same worn duffel tucked beside his feet, the same wrinkled blue shirt, the same calm profile cut against the light. And now she saw what she had refused to see before. Not cheapness, control, not weakness, distance. Not a man asking for permission. A man who had never needed it. The champagne glass slipped from Claire's hand. It hit her lap, tilted, and spilled cold gold across the red fabric of her dress. She did not move. Her mouth opened slightly. Her breath came shallow. Nathaniel turned his head just enough to look back. Their eyes met. He did not smile. He did not gloat. That was worse. Claire finally understood. She had not insulted a stranger. She had revealed herself to the one man in America who could make that revelation matter. Claire stood too fast. The seatbelt sign was still on. The aircraft gave a small shudder as it cut through a pocket of rough air, and she grabbed the back of the seat in front of her to steady herself. Champagne darkened the front of her red dress. One drop slid from the hem and fell onto her shoe. For the first time that morning, she looked ordinary, frightened, human, in the smallest and least generous way. Maya appeared in the aisle. Miss Harrington, please remain seated until the sign is off. Claire barely heard her. I need to speak with him. Maya blocked the aisle with her body. Not aggressively, just firmly. Not right now. Claire stared at her. The same woman she had dismissed. Minutes earlier now stood between her and the only person who mattered. That thought cut through her pride like a wire. Move, Claire said, but the old authority was gone. Maya saw it. So did the passengers nearby. Claire's voice had cracked on the word. Mom, Maya said, you need to sit down. Claire swallowed. Her eyes flicked toward row 1. Nathaniel had turned back to the window. He was not watching her. That was worse than judgment. She lowered herself into the seat. Slowly, carefully, as if the whole cabin had become glass. The seatbelt sign chimed off 7 minutes later. Claire was already standing. She walked toward row 1 with small, quick steps, one hand pressed flat against the champagne stain. She did not look at Daniel Price. She did not look at Ethan Lowell. She did not look at the man with the phone. But everyone looked at her. That was the first punishment. Nathaniel did not turn when she stopped beside him. Outside the window, the clouds stretched white and endless beneath the wing. The morning sun cut across his face, showing the lines at the corner of his eyes. Mr. Mercer, Claire said. Her voice was low, almost soft. Nathaniel waited. I owe you an apology, he turned then. Not fully, just enough. Claire forced a smile, but it trembled at the edges. I had no idea who you were. Maya, standing near the galley, heard it. So did the man in row 2. So did Nathaniel. His eyes stayed on Claire's face. That, he said, is the problem. Claire blinked. I'm sorry. You are not apologizing for what you did. You are apologizing because of who I am. A flush crawled up her neck. No, that's not what I meant. It is exactly what you meant. His voice did not rise. It did not need to. Claire leaned closer, lowering her tone to a private whisper. Please, this was a misunderstanding. I was under stress. I have an important meeting in New York. I reacted badly. Nathaniel looked at her for a long moment. He had seen this part before too. Not repentance. Negotiation. People like Claire did not confess unless consequences entered the room. Then suddenly everything became stress. Pressure. A mistake. A moment. But cruelty is rarely a moment. Most of the time, it is a habit that finally gets witnessed. "Miss Harrington," Nathaniel said, "I recognized you when you boarded." Claire's mouth parted. The color drained from her face. "You knew?" "Yes." Her fingers tightened around the seat shell. "You knew who I was?" "I knew your name, your title, your department, your history." Claire's breathing changed. Small, fast. Nathaniel continued. 3 weeks ago, I reopened several internal files at Meridian Global Holdings. Complaints going back years. Promotion disputes, retaliation claims, exit interviews that were never properly reviewed. Claire's eyes darted toward the other passengers. "Can we not do this here? You started it here." That stopped her. Clean, sharp. She looked down for 1 second, shame almost reached her face. Then fear shoved it aside. Those matters were resolved. "No," Nathaniel said. "They were settled." Claire's jaw tightened. "That is a legal distinction. It is a moral one." The words landed heavily between them. Maya stood still near the galley, her hand resting on the curtain. She had spent years listening to passengers talk down to crew members, and then apologize only when they needed something. But this was different. This was the mask coming off in real time. Claire's voice dropped further. "Mr. Mercer, I have worked very hard for this company. I know. I have produced results. I know that too. Then you should understand. Leadership is difficult. People complain when standards are high." Nathaniel's eyes hardened. "Standards do not require humiliation." Claire said nothing. "Results do not excuse harm." Still nothing. "And power," he said, "does not give anyone the right to decide who deserves dignity." Claire's lips trembled. Behind her, Daniel Price had stopped pretending not to listen. Ethan Lowell stared down at its hands like a lawyer, already seeing subpoenas in the air. Nathaniel leaned back in his seat. "What happened today did not create the case against you, Miss Harrington," Claire whispered. "Then what did it do?" Nathaniel looked past her, toward Maya, toward the passengers, toward every silent witness who had finally seen what employees had been trying to say for years. It confirmed it. Claire stood frozen in the aisle. No comeback, no title, no polished smile, just the sound of the engines and the terrible weight of being known. Claire returned to her seat like a woman walking away from a fire she had started, but could no longer control. Her knees felt loose. Her hands would not stay still. She reached for a napkin and pressed it against the champagne stain, rubbing too hard, spreading it wider across the red fabric. The stain bloomed dark and uneven, like something permanent. Across the aisle, the man in row 2 watched her for 1 second too long. Claire snapped. "What?" He looked away, but not fast enough to give her comfort. For the rest of the flight, the cabin carried 2 stories at once. One was the story people pretended to live: coffee refills, lunch trays, seatbacks, soft announcements from the cockpit. The other was the story underneath: phones lighting up, whispered names, the quiet understanding that a powerful woman had shown the room something ugly, and the man she had tried to shame was not powerless at all. In row 1, Nathaniel opened his laptop. He did not write a speech. He did not send a threat. He opened a secure folder labeled Ethics Review, then read the first document again. Angela Monroe, former Regional Operations Manager. 12 years with Meridian Global Holdings. Strong performance record. Repeatedly passed over after reporting racial bias in promotions. Terminated after restructuring. Settlement signed. Non-disclosure agreement attached. Nathaniel stared at the screen. Angela's exit interview had been short. Too short. One sentence had been highlighted by Rebecca Shaw, the outside ethics attorney. "I stopped reporting what happened because reporting became another way to get punished." Nathaniel read that sentence twice. Then he closed his eyes. His own humiliation in seat 3B had lasted minutes. Angela's had lasted years. That was the difference he could not ignore. Behind him, Claire pulled out her phone the moment the plane's Wi-Fi connected. She searched her name first. Nothing. Then Meridian Global. Nothing. Then she searched Nathaniel Mercer flight. Nothing. Her breathing slowed a little. Maybe the video had not gone anywhere. Maybe the passengers were decent. Maybe, by the time they landed, she could still shape this. That hope lasted less than 20 minutes. The first post appeared from an account with fewer than 400 followers. Senior executive screams at black passenger in first class, then finds out who he is. The video was shaky. The audio was clear. Claire saw herself, her face, her finger, her voice saying, "You do not belong here." She felt the floor drop, though she was 30,000 feet in the air. The clip had 800 views, then 3,000, then 12,000. Her thumb froze over the screen. A reply appeared. "Is that Claire Harrington from Meridian?" Another. "I worked under her. This tracks." Another. "Somebody needs to check that company." Claire locked her phone so hard her nail clicked against the glass. Maya approached with a trash bag. "May I take anything from your tray?" Claire looked up slowly. For one wild second, she considered asking Maya for help. Not because she respected her, because she needed someone beneath her to make the mess smaller. But Maya's face was calm now, not cold. Calm. That was different. Claire handed her the damp napkins without a word. Maya took them and moved on. When the captain announced the initial descent into New York, the cabin shifted. Seats straightened. Window shades lifted. The clouds parted, revealing the gray lines of the city below. Claire's phone vibrated again. Then again, then again. Richard Calloway. She stared at the name. The chief executive officer of Meridian Global Holdings did not call people unless the damage had already reached his desk. She answered with her voice low. "Richard." His voice was tight. "What the hell happened on that plane?" Claire closed her eyes. "It is not what it looks like." There was a pause. That pause told her everything. Richard had seen the video. "Claire," he said, "it looks exactly like what it looks like." She leaned toward the window, shielding her mouth. "I did not know it was Mercer." "God help me," Richard muttered. "That is not the defense you think it is." Claire's throat tightened. "What do we do, Richard said. The word was quiet, dangerous. Claire sat still. He continued. "You say nothing when we land. You do not speak to reporters. You do not post. You do not apologize on camera. You get in a car and come straight to headquarters. Is Nathaniel involved?" Richard gave a dry, humorless laugh. "Claire, Nathaniel is the earthquake. We are just finding out how many buildings are cracked." The landing gear lowered with a heavy mechanical groan. Claire gripped the armrest. In row 1, Nathaniel looked out at the runway lights rushing closer. Maya sat strapped into the jump seat near the front, hands folded in her lap, replaying every word she would write in her report. The wheels hit the runway, hard. A jolt moved through the cabin. No one clapped. No one spoke. And before the plane even reached the gate, Claire's name was already moving across phones in New York, Atlanta, Chicago, and Los Angeles. Not as a rumor, as a recording. The jet bridge felt longer than it had any right to feel. Claire walked through it with her chin high and her phone clutched in one hand, but every vibration made her flinch. The carpet beneath her heels swallowed the sound of her steps. Ahead, the terminal opened bright and cold, full of glass, overhead announcements, rolling suitcases, and people who had not yet noticed her. Then someone did. A young man near the gate looked from his phone to her face, then back to his phone. His expression changed. Recognition. Claire saw it spread before she heard it. A woman by the window whispered to her husband. A college student raised her phone, pretending to check the time. A gate agent looked up, saw Claire, then quickly looked down again at the screen in front of her. Claire kept walking. Not react. Do not explain. Get to the car. That was what Richard had said. Behind her, Nathaniel Mercer stepped into the terminal alone, carrying his old black duffel. No entourage, no visible security, no expensive coat thrown over his shoulders like armor. Just the same man she had judged. And somehow that made him look more powerful. Maya Bennett exited a few passengers behind him. Her uniform was still crisp, but her face had changed. She looked tired, shaken, determined in a way that frightened her a little. The man from row 2 approached her near the gate. "Miss Bennett." Maya turned. He held out a business card with 2 fingers. "My name is Paul Whitaker. I recorded what happened. If your airline asks for a witness statement, call me. Maya stared at the card. For a second, she did not take it. Not because she did not want it. Because she was not used to someone stepping forward after the damage was done and still trying to be useful. Then she took it. "Thank you," she said. Paul nodded. His wife stood beside him, eyes red. "I should have spoken sooner," he said. Maya looked at him carefully. "Yes," she said, "you should have." It was not cruel. It was honest. Paul accepted it with a small nod, the way decent people accept correction when it is earned. Across the terminal, Claire saw the exchange and felt another wave of panic rise. Witnesses were becoming organized. Silence was becoming paperwork. That was dangerous. Her phone rang again. Richard. She answered before the second ring. "I'm walking out now." "No," Richard said. "You are not. There are reporters near baggage claim." Claire stopped so abruptly that a man behind her nearly clipped her heel with a suitcase. "What?" The video crossed 500,000 views 10 minutes ago. Local media picked it up. National accounts are sniffing around. Claire's mouth went dry. It was a private flight issue. It was a public act in a commercial cabin, Richard snapped. There is no private anymore. A boarding announcement echoed overhead, calm and indifferent. Claire lowered her voice. "What do you want me to do?" "Go to the Delta Sky Club. Back corner. Security will escort you through the service exit. A car is waiting there." "And Mercer?" Another pause. Claire hated his pauses now. "Mercer is going to headquarters." Claire's hand tightened around the phone. "Already?" He changed the meeting. "Today. Not tomorrow." The terminal seemed to tilt. Richard continued, quieter. "And Claire, listen carefully. If anyone asks, you were startled by a seating error, you regret the misunderstanding, and you are cooperating fully with the company's review. That makes me sound guilty. You are on video raising your middle finger in a black man's face on a plane. We are far past sounding guilty." Claire closed her eyes. For once, she had no answer. Near the gate, Nathaniel stopped beside a window overlooking the runway. Planes taxied beneath a pale New York sky. He watched one turn slowly toward departure, silver body flashing in the sun. Maya approached him. "Mr. Mercer?" He turned. She held herself like someone expecting trouble and choosing courage anyway. "I filed my report before we landed," she said. "I sent a copy to myself, time-stamped." Nathaniel studied her face. Then he nodded. "Good." Maya's voice softened. "I don't know what happens next." "No one ever does," Nathaniel said. "That is why the record matters." She looked down for a moment. "I keep thinking about all the times I let things slide because I needed the job." Nathaniel's expression changed. The sharpness eased. "That is not the same as agreeing with it." Maya swallowed. "It feels the same sometimes." He understood that. Too many good people carried guilt for surviving systems they did not build. "No," he said. "The blame belongs to the person who caused harm and to the people who protected it." Maya looked up. Those words did something to her. They did not fix everything. But they gave her a place to set down a little of the weight. Claire watched from a distance as Nathaniel and Maya spoke. She could not hear them. She did not need to. The story was leaving her hands. At that exact moment, inside Meridian Global Headquarters on 6th Avenue, Richard Calloway stood in a glass conference room with 8 lawyers, 3 communications executives, and one locked folder he had hoped no one would ever open again. On the folder tab was a name, Angela Monroe. Richard stared at it, then at the screen showing Claire's video on mute. His face went gray, because the plane was only the beginning. The conference room on the 42nd floor looked too clean for what it was hiding. Glass walls, white table, silver pitchers of water lined up like props. A city view stretched behind Richard Calloway, but no one was looking at the skyline. They were looking at the screen. Claire Harrington stood frozen in the paused video, her middle finger raised inches from Nathaniel Mercer's face. A communications director named Laura Kim pressed her lips together until they disappeared. One of the lawyers, Mark Feldman, removed his glasses and cleaned them with a cloth, though they were already spotless. Richard stood at the head of the table, sleeves rolled up, tie loosened, face pale under the office lights. "Turn it off," he said. Laura clicked the remote. The screen went black. The silence that followed was not confusion. It was calculation. Claire arrived 10 minutes later through the private elevator, escorted by building security. Her red dress had dried in patches, but the champagne stain still showed. She had changed her face before entering. Not happy, not broken, controlled regret. The kind of expression public relations teams recommend when cameras might be near. Richard did not give her time to speak. Sit down. Claire stopped near the door. I need to know where we stand. Richard looked at her like he had spent the entire ride from the airport deciding whether she was a crisis or a liability. We stand in front of a public relations disaster, a shareholder threat, and a majority owner who just moved an ethics review from next month to this afternoon. Claire's mouth tightened. Then we need to contain Nathaniel. The room shifted. Laura looked down. Mark stopped wiping his glasses. Richard stared at Claire. Contain Nathaniel? You know what I mean. No, Richard said. I want to hear you say it. Claire exhaled through her nose. We frame this as a personal dispute, a seating conflict, stress, travel fatigue. A misunderstanding escalated by social media. Laura looked up slowly. Claire, you told him he did not belong in first class. Claire snapped. I know what I said, do you? Laura asked. The question landed harder because it came from someone who had spent years softening other people's damage for public consumption. Claire turned on her. Are you here to help or judge? Laura's face flushed, but she did not look away. I am here to stop the company from lying itself into a bigger lawsuit. Richard raised a hand. Enough. At that moment, the door opened. No announcement. No assistant. Nathaniel Mercer walked in carrying the same black duffel bag. Every person in the room stood up except Claire. Not because they were polite. Because power had entered without needing to knock. Nathaniel placed the duffel on the floor beside a chair and looked around the room. His shirt was still wrinkled. His shoes still looked old. But no one saw those things now. They saw the man who owned 75% of Meridian Global Holdings. They saw voting control. They saw their futures. Richard forced a smile. Nathaniel? We were just preparing a response. I heard enough from the hallway. Claire's face went rigid. Nathaniel looked at Laura. Do not issue a statement that uses the word misunderstanding. Laura nodded once, understood. Richard stepped forward. Nate, we need to be careful. The market reacts badly to internal instability. Nathaniel turned to him. The market also reacts badly to leadership hiding misconduct. Richard's jaw worked. No one is hiding anything. Nathaniel reached into his duffel and pulled out a thin folder. He laid it on the table. Angela Monroe's name faced upward. The room changed. Not visibly at first. But Claire felt it. Richard felt it. Mark felt it most of all, because his signature was on the settlement memo inside. Nathaniel tapped the folder once. This is where we begin. Claire stood. That file is closed. Nathaniel looked at her. No, that file was buried. Mark cleared his throat. There are confidentiality provisions attached to that matter. Nathaniel did not look at him. Confidentiality is not a license to conceal a pattern of discrimination. Richard's voice lowered. You are moving too fast? I am moving 5 years late. No one answered. Nathaniel opened the folder. Angela Monroe reported biased promotion practices under Claire's division. After that, her team was reassigned. Her performance rating dropped from excellent to needs improvement in 1 quarter. Then she was pushed out during a restructuring that affected one person. Claire's lips parted. She was difficult. Nathaniel looked up. There it is. The words were quiet, deadly. The sentence used on every employee this company did not want to hear. Claire swallowed. Richard turned toward the lawyers. Everyone out. Nathaniel shook his head. No. Richard froze. They stay. They need to hear this. Nathaniel looked around the room, his gaze steady and cold. Today is not about one video. It is not about one seat. It is not about one executive having a bad morning. He looked at Claire. It is about what happens when a company teaches people that dignity is negotiable. Claire sat down slowly. For the first time, she looked small. Nathaniel closed the folder with one hand. Call Rebecca Shaw. Tell her she has full access, personnel files, settlements, complaints, promotion records, all of it. Richard's face hardened. And if I refuse? Nathaniel held his gaze. Then by sunset, this board will have a new chief executive. No one breathed. Outside the glass, New York kept moving. Inside the room, the old Meridian stopped. Rebecca Shaw arrived at Meridian Global at 4:20 in the afternoon, with a gray briefcase, a sealed laptop, and the expression of a woman who had spent 20 years watching powerful people underestimate paper. She did not hurry. That made everyone nervous. The executive floor had changed in less than an hour. Doors that usually stayed open were closed. Assistants whispered over headsets. Legal staff moved in pairs, carrying boxes from offices that suddenly felt less private than they had that morning. Rebecca stepped out of the elevator and found Nathaniel waiting near the reception desk. He looked tired now, not weak, tired. There was a difference. "You ready for this?" she asked. Nathaniel glanced toward the glass hallway leading to Richard Calloway's office. "No," he said, "but we are late enough." Rebecca nodded. That is usually when the truth gets expensive. Inside conference room C, the first witness was already waiting. Angela Monroe sat alone at the long table with a paper cup of coffee untouched in front of her. She was 41, neatly dressed, shoulders straight, hands folded so tightly her knuckles had gone pale. She had not been inside Meridian headquarters in almost 2 years. The building still smelled the same. Lemon polish, burnt coffee, money. When Nathaniel walked in, Angela stood too quickly. "Mr. Mercer." "Angela," he said. "Thank you for coming." She gave a small laugh, but there was no humor in it. "I almost didn't." Rebecca sat across from her and opened a notebook. "No one here is asking you to perform strength," Rebecca said. "Just tell the truth at your own pace." Angela looked at her. Something in her face loosened. For years, she had been told to be professional. Be concise. Be grateful. Be less emotional. Be more cooperative. No one had ever told her she did not have to perform strength. She sat back down. Her voice started steady. Then it cracked. Claire did not start by yelling. People think discrimination always announces itself. It did not. Not with her. It was meetings moved without telling me. Client dinners I was not invited to. My reports going through 2 extra reviews when everyone else sent theirs directly. Little things. Plausible things. Nathaniel listened without interrupting. Rebecca wrote one word. Pattern. Angela continued. I trained 2 people who were promoted over me. Both of them came to me afterward and apologized. One cried. She said Claire told her I lacked executive presence. Her mouth tightened. You know what that means when they say it about a black woman. Nathaniel did. Rebecca did too. Angela reached into her bag and pulled out a folder, thick with printed emails. I kept copies. Not because I wanted a fight, because I thought one day someone would ask. Her fingers trembled as she slid it across the table. Nathaniel did not touch it right away. He looked at her first. I am sorry no one asked sooner. Angela's face changed. She looked down. For a moment, she was not a former manager, not a witness, not a case file. She was a woman finally hearing the sentence every institution had denied her. Across the building, Richard Calloway stood in his office with Claire and Mark Feldman. The door was closed. The blinds were drawn. On Richard's desk sat a printed copy of the company's emergency response statement. It was useless now. Claire paced near the windows. She is lying. Richard watched her. You do not even know what she has said. I know Angela. No, Richard said. You know what you did to Angela. Claire stopped. Mark looked toward the door as if wishing it would open and swallow him. Richard's phone buzzed. Then Mark's. Then Claire's. All 3 looked down. A new video had surfaced. Not from the plane. From the terminal. Maya Bennett speaking with Paul Whitaker. Paul offering his card. Maya saying, you should have spoken sooner. The clip was short. But it was clean. Human. It turned the story from scandal into conscience. Claire's face tightened. Richard cursed under his breath. Mark whispered, this is getting away from us. Richard looked at Claire. No, it already got away from us. In conference room C, Rebecca's phone lit up with a message from her forensic team. She read it once, then again. Nathaniel saw the shift in her eyes. What is it? Rebecca turned the phone toward him. Someone attempted to delete personnel archive access logs 40 minutes ago. The room went silent. Angela slowly sat back. Nathaniel's face did not move. Only his voice changed. It became colder. Who authorized it? Rebecca looked at the name on the screen. then toward the closed hallway door where Richard Calloway's office stood. Executive credentials, she said. Nathaniel stood. Not fast, not dramatic, but the air changed with him. Angela watched him pick up her folder with both hands, as if it mattered, as if she mattered. For the first time in years, she felt something dangerous and unfamiliar rise in her chest. Hope. Nathaniel turned to Rebecca. Lock the archives, preserve every server image, notify outside counsel, and call the board. Rebecca closed her notebook. Full emergency session? Nathaniel looked toward Richard's office. No, he said. Public session. Shareholders included. Rebecca held his gaze. That will burn the house down. Nathaniel's eyes were steady. Only the parts built on rot. The public session began at 9 o'clock the next morning in Meridian Global's largest auditorium. Every seat was filled. Board members sat in the front row with stiff faces and folded hands. Shareholders lined the center section. Reporters stood along the back wall, badges swinging from their necks. Employees watched from overflow rooms upstairs, silent over paper coffee cups and half-eaten bagels. Richard Calloway walked onto the stage first. He wore a dark suit, a blue tie, and the careful expression of a man who had practiced concern in the mirror. Claire sat near the side aisle, pale under the lights. She had been told not to speak unless asked. Her hands rested in her lap, but her fingers kept moving, twisting the edge of a tissue until it tore. Richard stepped to the podium. Ladies and gentlemen, he began. Meridian Global is facing a difficult moment. A regrettable personal interaction has been misrepresented online, and while emotions are high, we must protect this company from reckless overreaction. A murmur moved through the room. Nathaniel Mercer sat in the third row. Same wrinkled blue shirt, same old shoes, same black duffel bag at his feet. Some shareholders glanced at him, then looked away. They still expected him to let the polished man at the podium control the room. Richard continued. We cannot allow one viral video to erase decades of leadership. Nathaniel stood. The auditorium went still. Richard stopped mid-breath. Nathaniel walked to the stage without rushing. Every step was plain, heavy, final. Richard leaned toward the microphone. Nathaniel, this is not the appropriate time. Nathaniel took the second microphone from the stand. It is the only appropriate time. No one moved. Rebecca Shaw stepped forward from the side of the stage and pressed a button on the remote. The screen behind them lit up. Claire's video played. No music, no commentary. Just her voice. You do not belong here. The room absorbed it in silence. Then the next clip played, an internal call from the night before. Richard's voice, sharp and tired. Frame it as stress. Keep the old files sealed. If Mercer pushes, we question his judgment. Richard's face collapsed. The screen changed again. Personnel records, settlement memos, promotion charts, names, dates, patterns too clear to dismiss. Angela Monroe sat in the front row. Her hands shook, but she did not look down. Nathaniel turned to the audience. This company taught people that silence was safer than truth. That ends today. Richard grabbed the podium. You are destroying shareholder value. Nathaniel looked at him. No. You confused value with cover. A security officer moved quietly toward Richard. Then another. Claire stood suddenly. I am sorry, she said, voice breaking. I am truly sorry. Nathaniel looked at her for a long moment. The room waited. You are sorry because the person you humiliated had power, he said. The lesson is to respect people before you know what they can do to you. Claire sat down as if her legs had given out. 2 weeks later, Meridian changed. Richard was removed. Claire was terminated. Outside investigators took control of the old complaints. Non-disclosure agreements tied to discrimination claims were reviewed. Angela Monroe received a public apology, back pay, and a leadership role helping rebuild the culture she had once been pushed out of. Maya Bennett received a handwritten note from Nathaniel. You told the truth when silence would have been easier. She kept it in her kitchen drawer. Months later, Nathaniel boarded another flight alone. A young man in first class recognized him and quickly moved his backpack from the empty seat. Nathaniel smiled gently. Relax, he said. We are just two people taking the same flight. That was the point, not wealth, not status, not fear. Dignity first, always. If this story meant something to you, like this video, Subscribe for more stories about courage and justice. And comment these 3 words: never stay silent.